We're so glad that you all could join us this evening. My name is Casey Whitmarsh. I'm the Chamber's board chair and your host for the evening. We're excited to present our guest panel tonight, but first I'd like to thank the South Fairfax Chamber of Commerce and its board for sponsoring this event. Each month we bring you informative webinars, both for our member businesses and the community at large. You can check out our past webinars at www.southfairfaxchamber.org. And we would love for you to follow us on social media. And just for further clarification, this town hall will be recorded and be available on the Chamber's website afterwards. So tonight, I'm pleased to introduce a really diverse panel to discuss our the current state of distance learning in Fairfax County. So first up is Karen Corbett Sanders, who has represented the Mount Vernon Magisterial District on the school board since 2016. So since joining the board, she has advocated for increased opportunities for students in South County, ensuring that one's zip code does not predetermine access to opportunities or the quality of education a student receives in Fairfax County Public Schools. Ms. Corbett Sanders has served as the vice chair of the school board and 2 consecutive terms as the chair. She is retired international business executive and has served on boards in the telecommunications and healthcare fields. Gary Morris, principal at South County High School, is serving in his 25th year in Fairfax County Public Schools. This is his second stint at South County, where initially he was a founding member, and this is currently his 3rd year as the proud principal. Go Stallions, okay? Gary began his career in education at South Lakes High School in 1996 as a technology education teacher, and since that time has looked to expand his impact on the student experience. He prides himself on being a strong relationship builder with all stakeholders, and he works tirelessly to establish those relationships because he knows they pay huge dividends in the long run. One of Mr. Morris's signature accomplishments has been that he has brought a family theme to South County. This theme has helped to grow and strengthen the culture at the school. Sarah Buck is part of the Government and Public Affairs team for Cox, Virginia. By title, she is a public affairs manager. By function, she gets to work alongside great people inside and outside of the Cox organization, including local government officials, the media, business leaders, and community partners. Her focus is working towards building a better future through business development opportunities, digital equity programs, and corporate social responsibility. She is currently serving on the Virginia Peninsula Chamber's Board of Directors and as immediate past president for the Hampton Roads chapter of PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America. Stephanie Smith is a partner with Cooper Ginsberg Gray. She has been practicing family law with the Fairfax law firm since 2008. Outside of the office, Stephanie is an adjunct professor at George Mason University, Antonin Scalia Law School, co-teaching a family law course focused exclusively on Virginia law. Stephanie and her husband, Kevin, have 2 of their 3 young children enrolled in Fcps. Also, Cooper Ginsberg and Gray is a member of the South Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. So we're definitely happy to have her on the Chamber side. And then Marie Ripsinski, a senior at South County High, has grown up in Northern Virginia and attended Fairfax County Public Schools since the 1st grade. She's currently the overall SGA president as well as class president for our South County senior class. In addition to being involved in student government, Maria is captain of the South County dance team and a member of Stallion Ambassadors, DECA, and the Student Council. Outside of school, she participates in dance and performance arts training at the Metropolitan School of the Arts. She runs Kindness is Dope Clothing, a small business clothing company which sells athleisure merchandise, having recently developed a passion for business and entrepreneurship. In the future, Marie plans to attend college with a major in business administration and a minor in dance performance. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. What I'm going to do right now is, instead of everybody that's attending and watching this and looking at a PowerPoint presentation, we're actually going to go real and in your face perspective and watching everybody talk. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. All right, and I definitely encourage those, if you'd like, you can change your setting to a speaker view mode and you'll be able to see the people that are talking today. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight. I'd like to get started by taking a look at the student perspective. As a parent of an FCPS student, we quite often overlook the student's viewpoint. However, I presume that is why we're all here tonight and watching this afterwards, so we can provide the best learning experience possible for our children. So I want to thank Marie for sharing her perspective on the student side with us today. So if you don't mind, Marie, kind of share with us what's been the biggest change for you with moving the classes online.
Of course. Hi, everyone. So my name is Marie, and I'm happy to be here today to discuss some things with distance learning with everyone here. So my personal take on the grand scope of distance learning is that, as we all know, every student is very different. Every individual's process going through learning different things, whether it's different classes, different courses, is very different in person as well. So I would say that in person, kind of a general sense from what I've been getting in the transition to virtual learning among peers, and especially with myself, is that the two different types of students are sort of the ones who are more gregarious and feed off of the energy being with other people in the classroom. And then other individuals who are very independently driven to learn material, and they do well with just their own energy and that kind of one-on-one instruction with maybe the teacher and the material in front of them that they can help gain that knowledge from. And so with the switch to virtual learning, I think what has hit hardest is for the more outgoing, gregarious students who are learning best when they're engaging with their teachers and they're engaging with their peers in the classroom setting, have had a significantly more difficult time getting into the online learning platform, as people of all walks of life have. There's definitely that lack of in-person, the sense of moving forward as a unit in a group in the classroom setting. So I am 100% an example of that kind of student. I love going into class in person, sitting down, engaging with the teacher, following different sort of lecture formatting, working in group settings. And what I think has been really great is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which, if people don't know, that's the platform that we take our virtual classes on in Fairfax County, similar to Zoom like we're doing now. And in that, there's a variety of settings, including screen sharing and teachers presenting. And that goes very well for those students who I believe are great in just them with the learning in front of them. It helps with concentration. And I have heard an immense positive feedback from peers who enjoy that. They like being in front of the computer and getting that information in a lecture style, which is phenomenal for the screen sharing. You can see actively what teachers are doing, especially in some of the sciences and mathematics, seeing it right in front. But then for students like myself, who I love being sort of immersed in it, and I think the environment around is a lot harder to kind of communicate through the screen. So my personal experiences have been that in classes which lend themselves more to this learning style, so I would give the perspective that the English classes and sort of social sciences, electives of that nature, have a much better job translating, while some of the sciences, like I'm currently enrolled in physics and calculus in terms of my math and sciences. So those classes coming through the screen for a student who is so used to thriving in that immersed setting has definitely translated a little bit harder. And I think what has been great is there's been new methods to give information to students that previously we weren't using, whether it be it wasn't out of necessity or teachers were able to do in class. There has been doors that have been opened in terms of using new virtual platforms, and there's been ways for me to get information as a student that have been completely different from what they had before. But there is still a gap in translating what it means to be like 3 feet, which isn't attainable in any circumstances nowadays, but from a teacher or from a peer, watching as the gears turn for them. And for me, seeing gears turn for someone else and seeing it and being involved in it, not having that aspect has been probably the biggest challenge. So I was a little long-winded.
No. That was great. And there's a lot of insight on that side. And like I said earlier, it's really important for us to gain a student's perspective on this. With all that said, I mean, do you feel you're getting as good as an education as you would be in classroom, doing things online?
So personally, I feel that there are a couple of concepts baseline that I have missed up until this point in the year. And so I guess from that fact alone, you could say no. There also has been a lot of great strides towards things that I wouldn't have learned before. So the technology that we're all learning, things that are becoming pertinent to the environment around us. You could say that I'm gaining different skills, but I probably, if I were to argue, it would be on the side of the education being not as up to standard. So in looking at, as we'll start different units for a different curriculum, I personally, and then peers who are in the same sort of boat of classes, there's a certain amount of knowledge that because it's not translating, I like to say, because it's easily that it's being taught from teachers who have taught it for years. It's being taught, but then necessarily it's not sinking in and those gears aren't turning. And then I think what we are noticing is as the year progresses, concepts that we did think we may have known, we're now building upon. And if that foundation isn't as strong as we thought it was, or as it may have been in the past, I think over the next coming months, there is going to be a huge roadblock that I'm starting to face and that other people will continue to face, just because so many of the things that we learn are built based upon things that we learned before, which I think is necessary in structuring units and in courses and curriculum. It's all building on top of each other. So I think as of this point, that knowledge that maybe is lacking from the start of the year, or even we're noticing from years past, I would say, especially with the ending of curriculum in the past year being from March forward, there was a bunch of confusion. The world spun out of control. That sort of reflected through the end of, for me, my junior year curriculum, but for anyone, just the precedent year. I think we are going to start hitting roadblocks that will be a lot bigger than I think just kind of the cracks in the pavement right now.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And that's, one of the reasons why we're very appreciative to have Gary Morris and Karen Corbett Sanders here to kind of touch base on certain things, because those concerns for our students those concerns are not just from a parent's perspective, but also from a student's perspective. So I appreciate that. With this being your senior year, how are you navigating kind of figuring out what you will be doing the next year, whether it's going to college, heading to work? I mean, in this environment, things are kind of crazy right now.
Yes. So for this year, my personal plan for my postgraduate is to attend college and university. For many others, that is the case. But for others who are looking to pursue a career path beyond that, whether it be a gap year or entering the industry, I think what I would say as from previous years is that there has been just as much information given to us and available to us as students as there has been in the past. The counselor and administration team at South County, and I'm sure at other high schools in Fairfax County, has been amazing in making sure that students have the access to all of the knowledge that they could need for their future programs. For me personally, I think a perspective that I do really want to shed light on is that the stresses of the college admissions process for all seniors all people looking forward to go through, is always stressful. And I'm sure everyone here who has gone through it would attest to something similar. And then this year, that level of stress in just having to get a lot of things done and check off a lot of boxes, there's a fear of the unknown, which everyone faces through that process. But now more than ever, there's a completely, sorry, just looking at the chat, a completely different level of anxiety that comes from the unknown related to COVID. So my personal perspective and the perspective of many people is I was registered to take standardized testing from the months March to June. I was registered to take SAT, ACT once a month. And then it was so funny. It was like the Thursday before the Saturday of the world shut down. And as a result, all of the testing that I've been registered to take over the course of those months was canceled progressively. Like we would get notifications of cancellations. And then it's been a slow re-registering process. So I got to take exams over the summer beginning in August, which is the case for most seniors. And I think during the college admissions process, the huge stress of then having to take tests, which we previously would have already taken, I took, I want to say like 6 weekends in a row, I took some form of standardized testing. And while that might be a lot more excessive compared to some of my peers, a lot of us were in very similar situations in which there was a heavy amount of testing going on. And that has nothing to do with the curriculum of the timing of school. But I think a huge stress became the fact that students, while adjusting to this online learning platform and changing their learning strategies and going through applications, were then having to wake up on Saturday mornings and just take these like 6-hour-long tests. So for the senior class, that's very specific, that was a stress. But I think having gone through that process now, and with colleges releasing, okay, well, these scores aren't required, these scores could help you or could hurt you, it's just another level of the fear of the unknown for somebody who's trying to then now get in their first semester grades, and we don't know, it's hard to kind of balance the new learning schedule. I think that stress alone on the senior class has been a very big cause of confusion, not necessarily that we don't have the information in front of us from counseling and from teachers. There's been a lot of guidance there, but there is a great level of anxiety from not knowing anything out in the world of the college administration or admissions process.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the great thing is we have your principal, okay, and Karen Corbett Sanders representing the board in terms of just trying to get some insight on that side. So I think that information is not falling on deaf ears, and appreciate you sharing that.
Okay. And then did you by any chance want me to answer some of the questions that might have been in the everyone chat?
Sure. If you want to just touch base on the socialization aspect from a student's perspective, that'd be great.
Okay. I would say that on the whole, the socialization aspect has definitely been difficult for students in different classes. So I'm fortunate enough that my peers in the particular classes which I'm registered in, we sort of share a same level of passion to immerse ourselves in the learning. And the breakout room feature that is used in many classes, we get in and it's nice because we'll have an assignment and we can there's ideas and an exchange of ideas that is very typical. But in talking with peers who aren't in necessarily the same course that I'm registered for and are in different breakout rooms, I think what happens a lot is when you're in a classroom and it's, okay, everyone will split up into groups, please complete this assignment. There's a certain level of no one likes to sit in silence around a table. So people will sort of start to like have those icebreaker moments. But then in a lot of classes as of right now, that breakout room feature kind of will be an entrance in and just mics muted, cameras off. Just a certain level of, it's hard to ask that of a high school student when it takes a certain level of initiative and a certain just out there-ness that a lot of people don't necessarily want to put themselves in. And I think for that reason, being in those breakout rooms for, let it be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it sort of then becomes this isolated learning on my own experience. And for students who might not be understanding a particular concept, that definitely has had an effect on the students not feeling immersed in it. And then, like you're saying, for that socialization, or my apologies, socialization, there's been a lot of students that might feel a little bit more disconnected. And I think on the whole, it's because a lot of people are missing. I like to envision there's different types of friends. Like some people grow close to their close friends. They have maybe a larger circle. And then there's that third circle of peers and classmates. Being in such a large school district where it's kind of like your hallway friend or your English friend, someone that you just get to exchange ideas with because you might be sitting next to them in person. And I think that has been a huge impact on people, is they're missing those individuals that they don't regularly interact with, but that help make them who they are by being someone new. So that's been definitely one of the biggest hits to socialization.
Okay. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And that's important. The mental state of mind also promotes, the desire to learn. So I'm very happy you were able to share that perspective. That's just something that I'm sure we're going to address in a tad with everybody else. But
Perfect.
now, Marie, I want to, and for those that don't know, Marie is actually on travel right now and took the time out of her day to come out and do this. I want to thank you very much for being here tonight and just kind of giving us the insight on the student's perspective.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Absolutely. What's going on? And just for everybody's knowledge, I took a few questions off of the chat to ask because I knew Marie was going to be leaving. You guys are welcome to ask questions. You could always send it to the South Fairfax Chamber within the chat, and Carla will address that. And we'll go ahead and bring up some questions at the end for everybody. So with that in mind, I'd like to kind of switch gears now and talk about the latest going on with the Fairfax County Public Schools. We learned just this past Monday that the county is pausing the return to in-person learning for Group 5, which includes early Head Start, pre-K, kindergarten, and special ed students who are scheduled to return. Karen, if you wouldn't mind, would you give us an update of where we stand?
Sure, I'm very happy to give you an update on where we stand. But before I do that, I did want to thank Marie. I think she's already gone, for her excellent comments. But more importantly, I wanted to do a shout out on and a recognition of the incredibly hard work and dedication that all of the teachers in Fairfax County have focused on our students' success during this really unprecedented time. And so I did not want to start without first recognizing the amazing work, because they really had to transform the way that they approach education and teaching almost on a dime. And although we had some hiccups in the spring, we have been more successful in the launch this fall. That doesn't mean that we are actually able to reach every child by name and need. It is very clear that we aren't reaching every child by name and need, and that there are some students who may thrive in a virtual environment, but there are many that are not. And so it's really working to reach out and create opportunities and get those kids back into our schools as soon as it is safe, and that we have the resources available that we can make sure that we can serve the needs of those students. But I did want to just recognize the Herculean task that our teachers and our building administrators have focused on and made this as successful as possible. With that, let me tell you a little bit about where we're at. Many of you know that we've been really aggressively asking for a decision tree or a decision support matrix from the superintendent on how we ensure that our community knows what they can expect. And that is in the form of metrics. So this past week, the superintendent came to us with metrics for the county, where there's greater clarity for the community to understand when we will, depending on health conditions, when we will bring more students into our buildings, and pending health conditions and the stability of those health conditions, when we will dial back and perhaps rely more heavily on the virtual environment. So although we had every intention of having our kindergartners start back in our classrooms yesterday, the health conditions changed. And they had started to change last week, but the metrics, let me explain what they are so you can then understand how the superintendent came to his decision. The metrics are 2 quantitative metrics, and the third is the consistency in how we ensure that the mitigating factors or the precautions are in place and are consistently applied across our buildings, across our classrooms. The metrics are less than 8% of a positivity rate per day. So of everybody who goes and gets a COVID test, less than 8% of them come back positive. That's metric 1. The second metric really deals with community spread. It is the number of cases per 100,000 that are newly diagnosed in a given day. And if that number exceeds 200 cases per 100,000 in the Fairfax Health District, then that puts us in the highest risk category according to the CDC. If it is just a blip where it spikes up and then goes back down below, that is less concerning than if that trend goes up over time. So for dialing in or having more students in our buildings, if over a 7-day period, we have a trend going up above 200 per 100,000 cases, 200 cases per 100,000 population, or we have greater than 8% positivity, then we will not proceed with bringing more students back in our buildings. If over a 7-day period, the average across those 7 days exceeds either one of those parameters, then we will consider dialing back and relying more heavily on a virtual environment. So it is a complex, 3-part problem, but given those 3 parts, that's how the decisions are made. Let me talk a little bit about the mitigation piece, because the mitigation piece is really how do you control community spread? And in the case of our schools and virtual environment, it's how do you ensure you control or limit community spread within the schools? Obviously, we cannot control what happens outside of those buildings. But within the schools, social distancing, 6 feet between desks, hand washing, mandatory mask wearing, not only by students, but by staff, plexiglass shields where teachers are in the classroom, so there's a shield there. Let's see what else. Making sure that we are trying to keep our cohorts together as much as possible. Making sure that we have the cleaning supplies and the PPE equipment readily available, a 2-month supply in each building. And how are we going to know that we're consistently applying this? We have, the superintendent is setting up teams that will go through and audit each individual building every single week. And why do we think this is so important? It's important for the safety and security of our students and our staff in the building, but it will also build confidence with our community stakeholders, including our staff, our families, that our buildings are safe and that it is okay for our students to come back into them. This is so important because, as Marie mentioned, our students really do need to have greater opportunities to come together, because my concern is twofold. There's obviously the learning loss associated with being in a virtual environment, but there is also the mental health and well-being piece. And we know that our children are dealing with anxiety and stress. We talk about trauma-informed classrooms and trauma-informed experiences in training. We're talking about a triple trauma for many of our children. And that triple trauma is not only the trauma of the ongoing pandemic, but many of them are also having housing insecurity, concerns about losing their housing as a result of the changes in the eviction rules, food insecurity. We are feeding something like, at last count, I believe it's 39,000 students every single day in Fairfax County, including sending weekend packages home with them, because we know that they're having that food insecurity. And then there is the emotional insecurity, because we know that students need 3 to succeed, and we're not having that 3 to succeed readily available to them. And that being responsible adults and cheerleaders in the community so that they can go to them easily during the day. It's about having the support structure at home, and it's about making sure that they are able to engage in extracurricular activities. We are bringing kids back to some of those extracurricular activities, but we're still, it's like pushing a boulder uphill at this point.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's really a crazy time, and I know you guys are definitely doing your best to adapt to the constant changes. I mean, for you guys to have to undertake this in the middle of a school year without much notice, I know I personally, but I know many of my friends and family applaud you guys on what you've accomplished thus far.
Casey, what we're trying to do is ensure going forward that we have clarity for the community to have the confidence in what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are more effectively communicating, we're collaborating with the county services, and we're consistently applying these health measures.
And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this to the community, and we appreciate you guys participating, because there are a lot of questions out there. And I definitely see the questions going through the chat. I will definitely address those once we get to the end. But thank you for sharing about the status on it, Karen. Definitely appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So in regards to the students that are already returned to the classroom, Gary, if you don't mind, can you tell us how it had been going prior to the recent pause?
First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate this time and the ability and the opportunity to speak to the community at large. Things actually have been going pretty well. We currently have groups 1 through 4, as defined by Dr. Brabrand, which include our special education Cat B students in the building at the time, and they are with us on a Tuesday through Friday schedule that is full day. On Mondays, we have our ESOL newcomers, folks who are new to the country, and then our upper level automotive technology students who are also in the building. These students are in the building because their hands-on requirement of the class will impact their ability to be able to receive industry certification. So they must have the hands-on opportunities, as well as those students who are across the county going to our academies. They are with us on Mondays from about 8 o'clock until 11:30 a.m. Each of the groups have been doing very well, and we believe that they benefited very, very, very much so from face-to-face instruction. Each day, students and staff are getting more and more used to having students in the building, and I can tell you that it's a bright spot to have them in the building with us. We miss our kids a great deal. All of us got into the profession to work, in close proximity with our students, and this whole working through a screen is difficult, and it can be disconcerting at times for our staff. But our teachers work very, very well through this process, and those who have been in the building again have benefited from their time in. Of course, we want to have our students in the building. We want to be in that environment where things are, back to normal. But we're dealing with the new normal right now and working through it. We've learned a great deal from, the spring, and I think that we're able to apply those lessons that we've learned to the fall. And we're looking forward to our students, returning. And we do respect, for those families who aren't able to get into the building and those who have chosen not to be a part of the building, we do respect the choices that have to be made at this point in time. We understand, the pandemic has created a huge issue for everyone, and we're going to continue to move forward. The one thing I can say, and I want to echo that Karen and I believe even Marie shared earlier, that our teachers are working so diligently, and they will find ways to make things work. And so we will continue to work in that vein, and as long as we have the opportunity to work with our students, we'll do so.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing. Yeah, I actually had a very similar conversation with my daughter where she was wondering why her teacher was doing XYZ in terms of just having to schedule at the time. And I explained to her, I was like, teachers are working their butts off. This is not something that they necessarily signed up for. And I we definitely appreciate their just their patience with the new platform, with kind of transitioning over to doing things online, because just as much as it's been an uphill struggle for the students, I'm confident teachers have had their own shares of trials and tribulations to overcome. So, and thank you for bringing up as far as the same thing that Karen mentioned, and Maria, this is a stressful time for everybody involved. So. Now, in regards to FCPS it's a multi-year project giving students equitable access to learning experiences and technology tools, both at school and at home. So the high schools joined last year, and the middle schools are in the process this year. Gary, can you talk about that program, and has COVID changed the original plan?
The program has been great. It has provided our students with provided all students with the opportunity for access, and that's the key word is opportunity. You want to give every student the right to have the same, to be able to work on the same in level playing field as their counterparts, regardless of any other circumstances. At least give them that piece. The true benefit really has been the opportunity for students to make connections with some of those trusted adults that have been in the building and been a part of their lives for the last few years. It has been a wonderful opportunity for everyone to work together in this vein. And I want to thank the school board and the community for pushing things forward to allow for even some additional technology to be purchased for our elementary school students. What we thrive in, is working in an environment where we can be as close as possible. And in this environment, without the technology, we would be so far away, and there'll be so many students who may have already have been behind would have fallen so much further behind. And, as Marie stated, it's not, the ideal situation for everyone to work behind the screen. However, it is an opportunity for folks to come around to working in a different environment and learning new things. The one thing that COVID has done is forced our teachers and our staff to open their minds to some different types of work and different applications. Collaboration has been at an all-time high between teachers, and that is something that we know as a result of all of this will continue beyond COVID. So I'm thankful for the fact that we have the resources available to us, and that our teachers are taking advantage of those. And I don't have a teacher in our building who's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. They may express some difficulties with doing certain tasks and taking on new applications and new ways of doing things. However, they are willing to put in that work to try to figure it out and make sure that our students get the education they need and they deserve.
So if I could add to that a bit, what happened was prior to COVID, the plan was to fully implement Fcps on for our high school students, and that we would have made a decision this past summer to invest in the 7th and 8th graders. With CARES Act funding, we actually purchased computers for all of our students down through elementary school. We either purchased new or repurposed them so that all of our students K through 12 now have a device in their hands. We also recognize that not everybody has broadband at home. And so for those students that don't have broadband at home, we did two things. One is we immediately went out and purchased MiFi devices so that we could have connectivity for them last spring. But the challenge with MiFi devices, and I say this as an old telecoms person, is that they are not very reliable and they are actually not efficient to provide the most cost-effective way of providing services. So we have been partnering with companies such as Cox to utilize E-rate funding and utilize the graces of their wonderful corporate social responsibility to expand the connectivity. But a device is only as good as how it's deployed and how it's being utilized. And there are two aspects of that. And one key aspect is the professional development for our teachers and IAs. And I cannot emphasize enough how impressed I have been with the willingness of our teachers to absorb and engage in that professional development and reinvent the manner in which they educate our students. They flip classrooms. They are utilizing these smaller breakout rooms. We are piloting concurrent learning in some locations where we have teachers who are teaching students in person and virtually at the same time. You know, they're the great innovators right now. And I think it's so wonderful because typically we talk about technology as being, and technologists as being the innovators. With COVID, our innovators are our teachers.
Absolutely. And great innovators they are. So they've definitely been having to adapt and whatnot. So, and based on that same principle of togetherness, Sarah, I'd actually like to bring you into the discussion. So if you wouldn't mind kind of going over the partnership that Cox has kind of done with the county to ensure each child has access to the internet at home. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Connect to Compete?
I sure can, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion this evening. There was a couple of things that Gary said that I wrote down. I was just taking notes. He started off by talking about family, right? And then leveling the playing field, collaboration. All of those things are really the basis of why we do what we do with Connect to Compete. So Cox is a family company. It's 122 years old. And our founder of our company actually was an educator before he got into journalism and then created what is now Cox Enterprises. So the family still carries on that passion and that tradition that Mr. Cox set 120 plus years ago. And so Connect to Compete is really a program that was designed to help students get connected to the internet who otherwise wouldn't have a connection in their home. We piloted it in San Diego in 2012, and we rolled it out nationwide in 2013. And since then, we've connected over 500,000 people to the internet. because of the program. And it has not changed from a $9.95 per month program since its inception. So the company continues to invest in the program to be able to hold it at that $9.95. That's what they see on their bill, $9.95, for the folks who qualify and sign up and take advantage of the program. The things that have changed are all good things. So the things that have changed are speed increases. The speed has increased 3 times since. So it started off at 10, it went up to 15, and then now it's at 25. And at the beginning of COVID, we actually boosted that speed to 50 because we just weren't sure what everything was going to look like. Everyone all of a sudden was home and on their computers, and what did they need with it? What did they not need? So there were all of these trial and error scenarios that were going on at our corporate headquarters in the field, but really committed teams to making sure that the program remained available. It remained at the $9.95 price point. And then the next step was really, how do we communicate this to our school partners? How do we continue that conversation? What else can we do to make this process easier for them, getting families signed up, identifying families who qualify? Because really, in reality, there's only about 1/3 of the people who actually qualify for the program apply and finish the application process and actually have it in their homes. So we have 2/3 of people, of families in Virginia that could be benefiting from Connect to Compete for this $9.95 broadband speed service in their home to do their virtual learning. And then parents can telework on it as well and use it for other things, for entertainment too. But that's where we're finding some of our hurdles. So the school system has been fabulous in working with us to overcome challenges like student privacy and getting to families that are ESL, working with families who may or may not have the proper documentation that we need to get them signed up. So there's all kinds of things that have been thrown at us that we have welcomed the challenge, and hopefully the school system has felt like we've risen to that challenge. But it really has just been a series of trial and error. It's been a wonderful partnership to help identify students and then be able to work with the school system to pay on student accounts, just so using CARES Act money for its intended purpose, just to make sure that these students are connected. Because if they didn't have this option, they probably wouldn't have the connectivity at all. And that's by no fault of their own, because the account has to obviously go through an adult in the household. But having this option for a subsidized internet connection in the home, thanks to the CARES Act, has just been a blessing for so many families and for so many students in the state.
Outstanding. Well, I don't think the county could have asked for a better partner in trying to establish that relationship and make sure that the students and the teachers connect. And teachers have such amazing things to share, but it does no good if the students can't get to it, right? So, well, and has I know you touched base briefly on it, but has COVID kind of changed the program at all, or caused an expansion? I know you were talking about 2/3 of the folks aren't on there that should be on there. I guess how has the COVID push kind of been on that?
Sure, and I'll clarify too, the 2/3 of the people that aren't on the program, they may have service, but they may be at a different, they may have service through someone else, but that's just based on our what we know. So the population that is free or reduced lunch, and then how many people we know are on the program through Connect to Compete. But to answer your question, COVID has changed this from really giving us the opportunity to expand our qualifications. We run into some roadblocks with the school systems that have a high number of free and reduced lunch students. And so where a whole school may be receiving free lunch because a certain percentage of their school gets it. So a CEP school, I'm sure everyone on the call probably understands what that is. But, you know, looking at ways that we can get to the people who need the help with the qualifications that we have in place. So instead of just using free and reduced lunch and participation in SNAP or TANF like it was before, we added if you live in government housing, you can provide documentation to show you qualify for the program. If you are receiving assistance with your electric bill through a program that the state does, that also will help. And the other qualifications, WIC. So we know that there's families that qualify for WIC. And even though WIC is for infant children, a lot of times there's more than one child in the home. So that's also a qualifier. So looking at other ways that we can determine eligibility through, to meet that income, it's all based on income. So we look at existing, programs that are in place that already use income as a basis for participation. And that's how we have determined our eligibility based on income, so we don't have to go through all of that. So we're using pre-selected programs to help us meet that qualification. And that's really what sets us up for letting families sign up for the program, is that income-based requirement.
Well, I certainly appreciate the passion that you guys are showing for kind of helping to support the community. And I'm sure that also helps efficiency when, hey, just show us one document, okay?
Yes. Yes.
So, well, thank you again, Sarah, for the passion that you're showing with Cox, helping to support the community and kind of connect students to teachers. So with all the changes that were kind of brought about by COVID and how it's kind of wreaked havoc on our norms, to say the least, I think that the hardest hit were small businesses with employees trying to juggle work with learning from home. Stephanie, as a working mom and a partner in your law firm, what changes, if any, did Cooper Ginsburg Gray have to make to accommodate parents such as yourself?
Well, thanks for having me too. It's really great to meet everybody here virtually. I would say our working model just turned completely upside down from what we were used to. We have a staff of 19, and I would call us very family focused, not only because we are very focused on work-life balance, but we are sort of like a work family, and we have a whole bunch of long-term employees like myself, and we're all incredibly connected. So in March, when the entire landscape changed, we had to really focus on how to do our work as a team and as a successful and profitable law firm. So we completely shifted almost on a dime to a virtual work environment. So we closed our office down immediately when everything closed, and we all went remote. And thankfully, we have the technology to do that. Thankfully, we had some infrastructure, if you will, in place to do that. And we had everybody working on our cases. We do divorce work primarily. So we had all of those very high need clients still needing our services, and we were still able to meet their needs because of the technology we had available. But the flexibility and the understanding that the firm offers to our employees was just necessary. I think we were all sort of acclimating to what this was going to look and feel like for an unknown period of time. So incredible amount of understanding and just communication about what does everybody need, and understanding that not everybody is going to be available to get on a meeting and get on a phone call, and everybody was dealing with so much. So we took the time to increase our group meetings to weekly. The partners were meeting, multiple times in a week in the beginning, and just figuring out ways to accommodate whatever anybody needed, because it was so stressful. And that has shifted as we've adjusted. It's not as much a crisis right now, but it has completely shifted how we operate. You know, we're all still pretty much virtual. We have a structure here at our firm where we try to only have at most 10 people in the office at a given time, and we still are requiring everybody to get sort of permission to be here and get clearance, if you will, to be in the office. And we only have maybe 2 people minimum here to do more administrative work on a daily basis. So our landscape is just totally different, and we're not seeing each other as frequently. Our camaraderie is still there, but I'm sure a lot of small businesses are feeling this, where you don't feel quite as connected, just like the students don't feel quite as connected to each other. We're all missing that level of camaraderie. So we are absolutely focused on trying to make sure everybody has what they need to do their job and to be productive. And we're constantly, probably in an annoying way, we're constantly checking in with our people to make sure they have the equipment they need, to make sure that they feel like they can reach out to each other with questions. We actually have Cox phone service. So we have something called the UC app, which is the Cox business sort of suite, and we can use that to dial each other's extensions from our cell phones. So we're not necessarily having to use our personal phone numbers to call clients from home. We can just pick up our UC app and buzz each other like we were in the office and call clients and stuff. So we've had to, rework a lot of how we do business. And a lot of that for me personally is wonderful, because I can certainly reschedule, and people are much more understanding of the fact that I do have 2 kids at home, elementary age kids. One is a 3rd grader at Fairview, and my boy is a 1st grader. So they both need quite a bit of guidance during the week, and supervision to stay attentive to their studies. So everybody's been incredibly understanding, and I can do things in the evenings, and that's sort of the culture we've tried to adjust to.
And that's just as equally important as everybody else to kind of understand the parental stress dealing with adapting to the current environment. So have you had a lot of issues with other peers or employees of the firm that have needed to take time away because of COVID, or how have you adapted to those kind of requests as a small business?
Well, we haven't had, I can think of only one really sort of significant COVID-related work absence, I'll call it. And it was a major one, and it was an extensive amount of time that this key employee was out. So we really felt it, and we really felt the impact of having an important player be affected by this virus. And we navigated that as best we could, but it really required the 5 partners to step in and to pick up work jobs that we hadn't done before, and put on a hat we hadn't worn before, and figure out, can we do this? Can we fill this person's role? And it was super challenging. That was not what we expected to have happen. And we have since, because of that situation, had to really remember how important each one of our people are in their individual roles, but also to understand we all need to be able to step in and help, and to be as much of a team as we possibly can when things get really stressful. So we've done a couple of other things at our firm where we've tried to modify our leave policies a little bit. In particular, our family leave policy, we've modified that to be a little bit more expansive. We have extended maternity leave, in case childcare is going to be an issue for new parents, which we don't really know what things are going to look like in the coming months, and who knows how long. So we've taken some affirmative steps to make it easier and more flexible for parents to be away, which I'm obviously hugely in favor of. So yeah.
Do you think those changes that you guys have made are going to be permanent, or do you think that you would modify it back on a post-COVID world?
I do expect a lot of the changes we're making to be somewhat permanent. The virtual work especially is a totally different format than what we would normally do. We did have remote work opportunities available to our people, but it was as needed. But now that we've been doing it for so long, I absolutely believe we will have that opportunity available much more widespread. It works. I mean, and it does work for our customers, our clients as well. We absolutely see our clients being receptive to meeting in this format. They don't have to drive into our office. All of our court appearances, our court appearances are virtual. Mediations can be virtual, and they are virtual. So there's a lot of opportunity here for people to have legal services more accessible to them, and we will certainly still be doing that. And it, again, coming back to me, because I'm really important, but having the ability to balance my family responsibilities and to be there for my kids, and be there as a, quasi teacher, although I'm not filling that role in any respect, but just trying to be there to support them. That's going to be super important to our current employees and people that we will work with in the future. So yes, absolutely. A lot of these changes are going to be long-term, if not permanent.
It's nice to see how, the small business world, I mean, because that definitely is, it's a smaller margin for error, if you will, because of the small business environment. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that perspective on how you guys have handled the distance learning with, with the 1 second, Joe, at the end. But it's funny, nobody ever really thought this would be coming to fruition a year ago, and the advances we've made in just the way we do business has just been phenomenal. So thank
absolutely. You're welcome.
Sarah, if you don't mind me asking, how has Cox had to adjust things for employees? Because now that's on a corporate realm. How have you guys adapted for employees with kids learning from home?
Well, very similar to what Stephanie said, but everyone has been handling it with such grace and just being so accommodating. As I mentioned before, Cox is a family company. It's the great-great-grandson of the founder who runs it. So it has that family feel. So there has been so much that the company has done to make sure that employees feel like they have the time they need, that they have the resources that they need. We are mostly virtual. Anyone who can do their job remotely is doing their job remotely. But we've got techs out in the field, and we've got people who are laying fiber, and there are some job functions that require our technicians to be in customers' homes. And for a while, we weren't crossing the threshold going into the customer's home at all. And so that was a very big shift in the way that we were doing work until we knew that it was safe to be able to go into homes protected and taking all the precautions that we needed. Our techs just weren't doing that. So the company has just been phenomenal in making sure that anyone working from home has the resources they need. I mean, I've got my 2 monitors, I've got my desk set up at home, I have everything that I need. We have resources that help us conduct our business virtually. And, we do miss those water cooler conversations. We do miss the hallway conversations and some of the socialization that the students are missing. We're missing that too in the work environment. But I think that we found some creative ways to make sure that we're all still staying connected by having virtual happy hours, or we have our teams have coffee chats every other Tuesday morning just to talk about anything other than work. And so I'm trying to make it as normal as we can. But like Stephanie said, I think that there's a lot that we have seen that has worked. And it could be something that lasts for quite some time. So lots that we're doing to support the community in terms of making sure that there's products available to support the telework. You know, a regular connection can support your telework, but when you get into more advanced type of work, there may be some additional services that you need. So we are being able to provide business level services to individual homes now, which is something that we never did before. But now we can do that. So people who are really relying on a fast speed because of the work they do, or if they have to have really great upload speeds because they're doing a lot of document transfers and things like that, all of that can be accommodated now to the residential level, to where it wasn't the case before. You know, 1 gig is great, but if you need 10, we can get it to you.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. And that's great for those that might need that extra little oomph to kind of get through their workday. Okay.
Exactly. Especially if you're doing all of that plus teaching your children and you know, all of the things that come along with this virtual environment, for sure.
Indeed. Well, you know, Gary's kind of switching to the other side of things from an educator's perspective. What are some of the hurdles you've faced as principal with the staff, many of whom have elementary age children who are also kind of teaching from home as well?
So teachers are really stretched thin when it comes to this. You know, we have a number of teachers who do have children who are at home, and as Stephanie and Sarah have stated, you know, having kids at home can create a number of distractions and also, you know, pull you in many different directions. I empathize with them because I also have elementary school kids at home, and even one younger than that. And because of that, I mean, so even in the time we've been online tonight, I probably had about 4 or 5 visits asking for different things. So it doesn't make a difference how many people you have in the house in terms of adults. Those distractions when you have the kids in the house, you know, they distract you. They do just that. I try my best to work with our teachers and take into account what their situations are. I do my best that I can to limit the amount of work that is, you know, outside of their actual job that I'm providing them. Limit my communications with them while still trying to give them as much information as they necessarily have to have. But you know, we are in a situation where, you know, this pandemic has wreaked havoc on people's lives. We have some of our teachers who have been forced to take leaves of absences because they can't afford to come. It will not be able to come to work when students come back because of the concerns that, you know, that they may bring something home to a loved one. And in those respects, you know, we have to then find, you know, another qualified teacher, and not just a body to go into a classroom, but a qualified teacher to pick up, you know, where that teacher may have left off. And we have, you know, the work that we've done to build, you know, the culture that we have, and that's very difficult to do. It's not just anyone. We want to find someone who actually fits in. So I would have to be competing against not only what's out there, period, but also the other 26 high schools that are out there who also may need teachers to be replaced. Monitoring their workload is a huge thing. You know, teachers are very concerned in terms about, you know, what content they can deliver, how much content they can deliver. We cut classes by 10 minutes a day, and then also we have cut back the number of days that students are in class by a week. And so it makes it very difficult, you know, for teachers are struggling with trying to find that balance of, you know, do I take into account the fact that, you know, this student is struggling and they do, but I also have to worry about whether or not my student is going to be prepared for that AP exam at the end of the year. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to, you know, we worry about, and we discuss often in our meetings, and we seek the input of our students to find out what is doable for them, so that they can, you know, so we can better align ourselves to their needs, and also what it is that will allow them to move along successfully.
No, and thank you for sharing on that. I know it's been a struggle, so it's great to know that leadership has all that stuff in mind and understands the struggles that folks are going through. So, Stephanie, you touched base a little bit on that with one of the partners things, but I want to throw this out to everybody. What happens if somebody tests positive, and Gary, in your situation, a teacher or a student, if you guys can briefly, because, short on time, we want to get to the Q&A side. Can you guys briefly tell me what's a protocol that you have when somebody tests positive?
Gary, do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
Gary, you muted.
Go right ahead.
Okay,
Go right ahead, Karen.
So the protocols are consistent across all of our buildings. And if a child presents symptoms, first, before a child comes to school, the parents are supposed to certify that they've gone through a health checklist. Child doesn't have a fever, child has not been exposed to COVID, or a member of their household doesn't have COVID. They are not exhibiting cold-like or flu-like symptoms. And we're also encouraging people to get their flu shots. But inevitably, a child may end up at school and exhibit some of these symptoms. So they will be, if they exhibit the symptoms, they will be asked to leave the classroom and they will go to a health room where they will be monitored until a parent or guardian can come and pick them up. They will be asked to go and get a test. If the test comes back positive, then the child will be asked to stay home for those 14 days or for 14 days and come back once they have a negative test. Similar protocol in place for any staff member. If a single incident occurs, then that is how it will be done, and families will be notified of the occurrence. If there are more than 2 incidences in a location, then that is considered an outbreak, and then the school will be will close down. Now, with the single child, the classroom will be closed down and cleaned. All the protocols put in place to make sure that it's safe, extensive cleaning, ventilation, everything else. If it's 2 or more, then we believe that the facility will be closed down for the time it takes to do that deep cleaning, and everybody will be notified of it. But it's literally, this is where that sea of collaboration between Fairfax County Public Schools and the Fairfax County Health Department is so critical, because they will work with us to determine whether it is actually community spread or just a single incident. We also have a website, a portal on our website, so you can actually see a dashboard of instances where there have been occasions of students or teachers who have contracted COVID, and you can look up by school the current situation, as well as the VDH, the Virginia Department of Health, has a website which shows the indicators by public school system.
Wow, I'm so happy that you guys thought that through. I think that's important to make sure that you guys have your systems and processes in place. I had, and I know I'm kind of getting to some other questions, but one just pertaining to that one. Somebody asked 2 people in the whole school, regardless of school sizes, and I was kind of curious as well.
That's where working with the Fairfax County Health Department, because obviously we have schools where there are only 300 and something kids. We have schools with only 35 kids in them. So it's an issue of scale, and it's also of where the location occurs. So for example, we've got the SRS program in a building, and we have a pilot going on the SRS program may continue on and the pilot may be stepped down, but it's really on a case-by-case basis. But no matter what, it's the collaboration with the county, it's the communication with the community, being the families, the students, the families, and the teachers and staff, so everybody knows, A, that something's occurred, and B, what the process and how it's been mitigated and what the process is.
Okay, thank you for elaborating on that. So I had a question asked of me, and I wanted to bring it up to Gary and Karen. If you guys don't mind, going back on Marie's not focus, but comments on the sanity of the student and the socialization aspect of it. Can you guys elaborate on any particular different things that you're going to be doing potentially for the students on those memorable moments, as far as especially seniors? You know, I remember my senior night, the student event night, and I loved it. It's a fond memory I have, and it kind of feels like they're going to be robbed of those experiences. Can you guys comment on any thoughts you have on that?
Well, Gary went through graduation last year, and so I think he's probably well poised to talk about those type of experiences, but also about what we're doing with bringing some of our kids back earlier in January, and the SHL as well. Go ahead, Gary.
And so right now, you know, we are still hopeful that, you know, come springtime, we'll still be able to host those memorable and traditional events that students look forward to: prom and graduation and the all-night grad party. As a matter of fact, I was just in our PTSO meeting just last week, and we were discussing the all-night grad party. So we're still working through plans in hoping that we'll be able to do those things. We are constantly talking to our kids about, you know, what it is that they would like to do in the meantime. The great thing about our students is that they have been resilient throughout this process. They have an understanding of how serious this is. And so therefore, when we talk to them about, you know, things that they could possibly do right now, they do provide us with ideas, and we try to put things on for them. We just had our virtual pep rally last week. Students did a wonderful job with that in terms of, you know, providing some opportunities for unity. We still hold our weekly spirit activities. Students participate through classrooms and take pictures and share those, and I mean, to see the amount of spirit that students still have in this environment has been awesome. Our individual classes have been working pretty diligently and trying to stay connected. We still host our clubs. We still have activities for our clubs. They meet on probably like every fourth Friday right now that our clubs are meeting. And so those students are still getting together and doing some of the things that they would normally do. And as you know, we were hoping prior to the change in the health model, we were planning to bring students back to start meeting with clubs as early as the end of this month, bringing them back on campus. So we do have plans to try to, you know, maintain some of the same types of activities and encouraging our students to be a part of those, because we do believe that, you know, as much as I talk about the family, it's important that our students do have that connectedness with not only trusted adults, but also their peers. It was one of the things that Nate Anabadu, who was our student rep on the school board, he brought up in a letter that he wrote to Dr. Brabrand, how important it is for them to get together. And, you know, it is very important. And we want to recognize and be able to provide them with those experiences. We had, as a county, we came up with a plan to celebrate our seniors. And it was not the plan that that anyone, you know, truly wanted, but we did the best we could, and our students truly appreciated it. I can't tell you the number of parents who actually said that they enjoyed the photo opportunity that they had for their students on stage. And I'm not saying that was what we wanted to do. It's not something we want to do in terms of, you know, celebrating our seniors, but it was something that we felt like we had to do in order to give them something. And so our minds, and you know, will continue to work. We will continue to talk about what things are possible, and if at all possible, we will have in-person graduations for our seniors, because they deserve that. I was asking Marie earlier about, you know, whether or not she was going to paint a parking space. So last year, our seniors had the opportunity to come in, and those students who drove, they would, you know, have the opportunity to purchase the right to paint their parking spaces. We're going to continue that tradition this year and allow our seniors to do that, because we're not charging this year for student parking. It will probably open up the opportunity for more students to actually be able to do that. So they could probably paint a parking space and not even have a car. That would be awesome for them to be able to do that. But we're going to try to, you know, and the reason why we would do that is because we want to include as many students as possible.
Right.
You know, every student doesn't have a car to drive. And so the opportunity for students to be able to participate in that is something we want to provide them. But as I said, we're going to continue to, you know, to rack our brains around what things that we can do for them to celebrate them. And, you know, we encourage the input from not only our student body, but also our parent community. You know, those things, we have a wonderful community group. I felt so supported since being in that school. But, you know, our parents are so willing to do any and everything to help celebrate our students. And so we count on those folks as well to help us out in these initiatives.
Wonderful. It's good to know that definitely is top of mind as well in terms of on the school side. Now, going on the student side, in regards to one of the other questions we had with the COVID changes altering the traditional standardized testing process, are students losing content and momentum?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, you know, that as Marie stated, you know, online learning, virtual learning is great for some students. I did an interview with a student group, and I had one student to tell me, you know, this is much better for me, you know, to work in this environment. But for others, it's not. It is, you know, it has been a detriment. You know, we have a certain population, you know, or we have pockets of students who have been, you know, somewhat reluctant when they're in an in-person environment. So you can only imagine what that's like when they're in a virtual environment. We're doing our best to, you know, to ensure that those students, you know, stay connected and engaged. We are out doing home visits from time to time just to let them know we're thinking about them if they're not showing up. And for those students who, you know, who are there on a regular basis and are still struggling, we are trying to find ways to continue to keep them engaged and find alternative methods to, you know, to reach them. It's a struggle for every single person who's involved in this process. Our teachers are working, you know, almost twice as hard as they would have in a normal year. I don't know, for those of you who watch the school board meeting, you know, to hear that the teachers working 70 hours a week to prepare lessons and to be prepared for their students when they come to class, that's unheard. I mean, it's unheard of. But again, our teachers will do that, and our students have been, you know, resilient and sticking with it. I had a conversation with a parent the other day, and she was talking about, you know, just, you know, how difficult it is for their student to maintain the momentum that they had going into this year. And, you know, we try our best to hear that. And again, that balance I talked about earlier about, you know, are we giving them enough so that they can feel successful going forward, you know, but at the same time, taking into account the social emotional concerns that exist for every student, and making sure that they feel that they're comfortable and they feel safe. You know, it's a struggle for everyone involved, without question.
Okay.
And if I can just add on to that. It's a struggle for all of our students, but we have certain vulnerable populations, especially our students with disabilities, that we know that there's going to be learning loss. And so making sure that we understand that there will be gaps, but that we have, and this is where I talk about our innovative teachers and our our heroes in that they're having the scaffolding in place so that we can address those needs and have a plan once we're fully back engaged, back in our classrooms, in our schools, that we have a plan for remediating those situations. Because it is multi-pronged. We know that our neurodiverse children, the whole spectrum of neurodiversity, from more traditional general education to advanced learners and those with special needs, are all going to have some impact from the trauma. And we just need to have the programs in place and the recognition that we're going to have to do scaffolding to fill those gaps and to address those needs.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's kind of, we definitely want to make sure that, I mean, I think the ultimate goal really is just to make sure that all parties involved are winning, including the students, and making sure that we're better preparing them for the future. So I appreciate you guys doing that and kind of going over everything. I did have one other additional question is that somebody asked, is that there was a discussion already installing high angle cameras to allow live streaming of FCPS football games, for instance. Is that an initiative Cox is supporting? Or Sarah, could you touch base on that quickly?
I am not sure that that is something we're doing, but it's never out of the question to brainstorm and think about what we might be able to do with that. So send me the information. I'll be happy to pass along to the folks who would be able to do that and work it on our end. It's definitely me.
Well, thank you, and I apologize for blindsiding you. And I will definitely say to the person that sent that to me, welcome to forward it to me, and I will forward it on to you, Sarah. Okay?
I'm happy to look into it. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
All right, perfect. Well, give me 1 second. I know we've gone a tad bit past the time. I know there were quite a few questions in there, and we really appreciate everybody showing up. So give me and here we go. So once again, I really want to thank our panelists today for showing up. It really was an amazing discussion tonight, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing more on this topic as we make our way through the holidays and into the new year. So tonight, a recording of what everyone heard tonight will be available on the Chamber website beginning tomorrow. And I'd also like to remind everybody that that Shop Small Business Saturday is coming up next week, right after Thanksgiving, and we always appreciate everybody supporting their local chamber businesses, but also just everybody in the community. You know, there's a lot of things, a lot of shopping to take place in this fourth quarter, as always, and we want to make sure that that small businesses are not overlooked in the grand scheme of things. Let's see, and I also want to thank our guests for showing up today. We, you know, understand the South Fairfax Chamber of Commerce is really here to kind of bring forth this attention to a lot of relevant ideas within the community. So as I mentioned earlier, please follow us so you can see all the great things that are happening and all the webinars that we put on to help support our community. And we're also looking for ideas. So if there's ever stuff that people want to reach out to us on, we want to engage the community just as much as we want to be there for the community. So, and on top of that, I'd definitely like to mention the Lorton Holiday Extravaganza. So if you're looking for a unique gift for someone on your list, we encourage you to check out the Lorton Holiday Extravaganza online market. Once again, this is benefiting the South County PTSO and the class of 2021 when it comes to supporting the school, the seniors, like what we mentioned earlier that Gary was talking about, all the different things that the school is trying to kind of incorporate. That all comes at a cost, and a lot of that is brought forth from this the marketplace. So we definitely appreciate your support in supporting that. On top of that, we have another aspect of how we're supporting our community in the South Fairfax area, and that's with our webinar, our next webinar that's coming up on December 10th. We definitely want to see everybody here, you know, on December 10th to kind of celebrate Winter at the Workhouse. We're going to have a presentation going on Winter at the Workhouse. So definitely check out the website and the link that we're going to be posting all over the place. And both for the holiday extravaganza, and then on top of that, the Winter at the Workhouse. And if you'd like to, please follow us on our social media. There's all our links on there, just so you could stay up to date on all the things that are going on within the community, not just with local businesses, but also with just the community at large. So once again, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. We can't express our appreciation enough, and just know that you know, we're here to help support our community. All right. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Go Stallions. Exactly. Okay.